If you've ever worked in a big organization, I bet you £1,000,000 you've felt the kind of soul sinking frustration that comes when change projects move at a snail's pace. At one end, you've got the parade of glossy PowerPoint decks from high priced transformation consultants. On the other, a shed load of meetings, all talk and zero follow through. Well, today's guest, Luke Murphy, is here to flip the script on those old fashioned change ideas. He believes real change doesn't need to come from the top down, it can and should start anywhere. Luke's on a mission to inspire professionals at every level to reimagine how change happens in their role, in their team, and in their company, with more impact, more ownership, and more speed. Let's dive in. Luke, what stops people who are frustrated by a lack of change within their organization from actually initiating change themselves?
A lot of people are frustrated with the way work gets done in their teams and organizations, and they know deep down that there is a better way, but either they don't believe they can make a difference, they don't want to rock the boat, or they feel overwhelmed by the scale of change needed. And I see this a lot. People tend to fall into four main traps. The biggest one is waiting for permission. They look to leadership for a top-down mandate or wait for the transformation program that was promised and never seems to materialize, the one with the fancy code name. But by waiting, nothing changes. We maintain the status quo. Inefficient ways of working continue and frustration grows. And honestly, most top-down transformations fail anyway. Another trap is chasing perfection, thinking we have all the answers. Big upfront design, beautiful Gantt charts, every risk mapped out, and the perfect plan in place before taking action. But perfection doesn't exist, and transformation is a journey, not a rollout. And we learn by doing and adapting along the way. And the last two traps are either trying to force change onto colleagues, doing it to people, or trying to do it in secret, hoping to fly under the radar, skunkworks style. But transformation should be a co-creation. It should be done with people, not to them. And we can share openly and invite feedback and collaborate so that we can get buy-in and take people on that journey with us.
Oh, I love that. With rather than to. Really like that. So if those are the traps, what can people do instead?
Instead of waiting for permission, they should become what I call a trailblazer. So someone who challenges the status quo and drives change from the ground up. A trailblazer is someone who is curious enough to see that there's a better way, courageous enough to go out and find it, and collaborative enough to bring everyone along on the journey. And trailblazers inspire through action, not authority or job titles. No one gets a job title of trailblazer. They build support organically, not through executive mandates. And actually, we're closer to the coalface. We know how things really work. We're familiar with the day-to-day challenges. So instead of waiting for the answers to come from above, we should actually look to ourselves and our colleagues to drive the change that we want to see.
Love it.
Because when change is driven from within by people who are embedded in the organization, it's got a much better chance of success. And real change happens at the grassroots level anyway. And we get to enjoy a better way of working that we create for ourselves. And even though being a trailblazer could be quite challenging, it often feels like swimming against the tide. It can also be incredibly empowering when we start to embrace our inner rebel and we break a few rules and we see real change. It can be deeply fulfilling.
Ooh. So it's flipping that old-fashioned model on its head totally, from that change mandate comes from the top, but actually we trailblaze through change. Okay, so make it real for me. Give me a success story.
The best example I can give is my own story because I've lived it. I've been a trailblazer. I've got all the scars to prove it. I was the first product person in a new experimental way of working. At first, I was excited to make a difference, but then I quickly realized that leadership weren't taking action. The big consultants came and went without much impact. And that's when I realized that if real change was going to happen, it needed people like me, trailblazers. And early on, I referred to myself as a guinea pig, but it was an agile coach who told me to be kinder to myself and called me a trailblazer. And it's the first time I heard the word, but it really resonated with me. It shifted my mindset and gave me a new identity. I decided I needed to step up, to take action instead of waiting. I became someone who was going to make things happen, not just a passive participant in an experiment. And that mindset shift led to some real success. We were working very differently from some of the other teams. We were driving faster results and improving the customer experience. And our approach set the stage for a much bigger transformation, one that resulted in an international award for Transformation of the Year. But that recognition was just the cherry on the top. The best part for me was the impact it had on employee engagement and retention. People were happier because they were working in a better way and they saw the impact that they were having.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay. So if someone is listening to today and they are currently feeling frustrated by the lack of change within their team or their organization, what might they do to make a start on becoming a trailblazer?
Good question. It doesn't have to be huge at first. I always say, think big, start small, but start. Even small steps can create a big impact. So something simple that you can start today. And I've got 4 things really. So number 1 is we start with why. We create a clear vision of the kind of change that we want to see. What would a better way of working look and feel like for you?
Love it.
We paint a vivid picture in the present tense as if it's already happening and make it something exciting that people still want to be a part of. Step 2 is then to share it with others. It doesn't have to be a big fancy presentation. Just have an informal coffee with people that see the same frustrations as you and can buy into your vision and get their feedback. You can start to build a small group of allies and together you can start a movement. And then number 3 is then start to challenge the team's habits. So if something isn't working, ask yourself and your teammates, well, if we were starting from scratch, what would we do differently? And then we can start to turn those ideas into small but visible experiments that you can run quickly to spark conversations and drive action. And then the last thing, which I think is the most important then, is to share your stories. So turn those experiments and results into stories that leadership and your colleagues can't ignore. So share your wins, share your failures, share your learnings. That transparency creates curiosity and it can create a bit of a snowball effect. Because when we share openly, you can create that gravity that pulls people in and creates that momentum for lasting change.
We are giant fans of experimentation at the Joy at Work podcast. Thank you, Luke.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this, you might also enjoy my life satisfaction assessment. It's a 30-minute program where I guide you through a deep dive into 10 areas of your life to assess what's bringing you joy and what's bringing you down. I call it Derailed. It's a fabulous place to begin a Joy at Work redesign.